Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to look at the drawing tools, select and line tools. So our objectives are to create a bridge using just these tools. So just using the select tool and using the line tool. And then finally, we're going to export our images as a PNG or a Jpeg. So you'll remember in the last lesson when we created and we saved our bridge file and it come up as an FLA. And I said to you then, that's a work file. So then I need to show you how to create a proper image file. The difference being, of course, is an FLA, if you send that to your friends or your family, they won't necessarily be able to open it unless they own Adobe Animate. Whereas if we export it as a PNG or a JPEG, your family and friends will be able to open that on whatever computer without needing a separate bit of software. So that's our main mission today. So let's just show you what we're going to be creating. So here's the bridge, and it's very, very simple, and you can see it's just made up of lines. It's made up of some curved lines and a whole bunch of straight lines of varying thicknesses, plus a few different colors. So we're going to keep this very, very simple. So the tools that we're going to be using is this black arrow tool and this line tool, and then we're going to change the properties to kind of match it. So first off, let's just learn how to use the line tool. So when we click on the line tool and I drag out a line, you'll notice that I can change the size, the length, and the way that it's positioned all the time I've got my left mouse clicked. So if I let go now, it will create a flatbed for me. Now, if I need to select this, I need to come up to the arrow tool, because if I click on it now, it's just going to create me yet another line, and that's not necessarily what you want straight away. So you do have to get used to switching between the line tool and the black arrow tool. Now when you click the black arrow tool, and I'm just going to double click it here just to make sure I get everything, get rid of this bit, you can then select it. So with it selected like this, so let me just do that one more time. So click it, and you see these little dots on it. That basically means it's selected. And now when I go over it, I get this kind of pointy arrow, and it just means I can move it up and down as I want. Another thing that I can do is if I come to the end, I get another bracket. I have to deselect it first, but I get another bracket that allows me to change the angle and change the length as well. And I can do that with both ends. So if I come to this end, and it does have to be deselected for this, and then I can change the way that is, and I can change the length as well. There is another one which you're going to need to use for when you start doing the curved lines, is when you come into the center with it deselected, you get the curve angle, and that allows you to create a nice little curve. So pause the video now and just give that a quick go. Okay, so the next thing we need to look at is the property. So we're going to select our line, and the first thing you might think to yourself is, actually I don't want that color. So you can come up to the properties, which is over here on the right, and you can change the color very, very easily. You also have these extra options for loads of different colors as well, which is absolutely amazing. You've got infinite colors there, but I'm just going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to change it to a blue. So even after you've created the line, you then have the power and the flexibility to change it. So there's the color. You will notice that there is no fill color for this. Fill colors are only available with solid shapes. Okay, so the line tool is not a solid shape, it's just a line. If you were using the rectangle or the oval, these would all give you these fill options, and we'll look at that later. The next thing we look at is the stroke. So you can change the stroke, and you can make it as high as you want or as small as you want. You can also change the style, so you can actually just change it to a dotted style, or you can, and it doesn't show up very well, it's because the stroke's too thick, but if you make the stroke smaller, it brings the dots out a little bit more. You can change it to an even narrower dots, you can change it to kind of like a drawn line, you can change it into like a particle system, and you can do some really cool things with the particles as well. You also have a lot of flexibility here, where you can have a whole brush library that you can select on, or you can edit the brushes even more. We're not going to look at them just yet, but they are there if you want to have a little play with. Now the width parameter is not available all the time. The style is something different. So if we go back to the original hairline, then this width becomes available to us. And let me just make this a bit thicker again, just so we can see what's happening here. Now with this done, you can come down, and yours will be slightly different actually. If you look at the cap, yours will have a rounded cap to it, and that's really interesting to know that if you've got this cap on, you can have a rounded or you can have a flat cap, and this will affect what happens here. So for instance, if you've got the rounded, this kind of square edge that's meant to be won't actually happen. Okay, so if you need to turn the rounded edge off, just go none and that's done, or then you can change the way that looks as well. So I'll tell you what, why don't you pause the video now and have a go at these properties. So draw a few lines and have a go at these properties, changing the properties, manipulating it a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty much all we need to do for this in order to create our bridge shape. So I'm just going to come into here, I'm going to use my black arrow tool, and I'm just going to select all the lines because I don't want them, and I'm going to delete it. Now make sure you're working on your lesson 1 bridge.fla. If you're not, you can go to the file, and you can open it, or you can save a blank document. Make sure you save it into your computer folder, just like we showed you in the last lesson. If you for some reason missed out on the last lesson, please go back and have a look at it now, just to make sure you are saving it in the correct place. So we're going to create our bridge. Let's just look at what we need then. So let's open up this image, and the first thing I'm going to do is create this flat line, and I'm going to create these uprights as well. So I've got a nice blue flat line, and then I've got a thicker upright. So let's just do that now. So here comes my flat line, and it's quite thick. So I'm just going to create it, and then I'm going to edit it. So let's go to this, and let's just make it a bit thinner than that. And I'm happy with the blue, but if you weren't happy with the blue, you can change it to whatever color you want to. Oops, and I was happy. Now I just want to move it a little bit. So with it selected, I'm just going to move it so it's kind of in the center. The next lines that we want to create then are the uprights. Now this is going to cause you a few issues, because what Adobe does is it intersects lines. And if I was to double select this now and press Control C for copy, then Control V, it would create the whole thing for me. So let me undo that. And you have to be very careful about this. Let me show you another demo that might be a bit more obvious. So with that selected, double click, and look what it does. It breaks it apart. So this is something you have to be very, very careful of when you're working in Adobe Animate, is that it will break things. If they intersect, it will break them apart. So if you want two lines that are exactly the same, you might find it easier to create those lines off stage. So let me Control Z this and go back a few and just get rid of that line completely. Control Z a whole bunch. Now let's come off stage. So I'm going to create an upright off stage. And because I know that I want both of these to be exactly the same, I'm going to go to my black arrow tool, and then I'm going to press Control C, Control V. Now, when I move it apart, you'll see that now I have two of these. I should have. Try it one more time. There we go. Now, so let's place the first one, and don't let go until you're happy, or don't deselect until you're happy, because the minute you deselect it is when it will intersect with the other line and it will just break it apart. Okay, so I'm happy at that point. Now let's go and get my other one. Now with it selected, I want the same height. So one thing you could do, there we go, you see that line that just appeared? It's going to make sure it comes in at exactly the same height. Now I do have a little bit of an issue there, so I'm going to try something else. I'm going to press Control Shift. So let's do that again. So if I click one and then press Control Shift, what I should be able to do is move that without interfering with the intersecting line. Let's try that. Yes. So if I wasn't to do that, I would have created a hole in it. Okay. They're not completely right, but I can live with that. So the next one I'm going to do, and let's make these thicker actually. So let's try that technique again. Control Shift, Control Shift, and now let's make them thicker. Let's make them, I don't know, 25. And you can double click on the number as well and make that 25. So now we have our flatbed and we have our big peaks here. So the next one we want is a different color. Let's make this one yellow, and these are going to be the angled lines. So I'm just going to create one line from here and go all the way to the center. And obviously it needs to be a lot thinner than that. So let's come to the black tool. Now, because it's a different color, it's not intersecting like the other ones did, which is quite nice. So that's another little tip that you can learn. So when I want to create my next line, I do want it to come from this tip here all the way across to the center of this one, and then I want to create another one to here. At the moment I haven't put the bends in, so let's go to the black arrow tool, let's deselect everything and hover over the middle, and then you can create that bend, and then we can create this bend, and then we can create this bend. There's a few other things that we can do because I'm not massively happy with this bit here, so we should I think I'll just leave it. I don't want to complicate it too much. So the next thing we have to do, and the last thing, is just to create the lighter blue lines going down the middle. So all being said, that shouldn't take you too long to do. This bit can be quite fiddly. Another thing you might find useful, if I Control Z that to undo that, is to use the zoom tool. So there's a little zoom tool here, and if you're working on a fiddly area like I was just then, you can zoom right in, and you can zoom back out easily enough as well, just by not doing that. You can zoom in and out, and also if you've done what I've done where you've gone in too far, you can come up to this area here, and you can go fit in window, and it will take you back to the normal bit. So just a couple of useful tips, and then we should be able to draw our lines a little bit more precisely. And you can go as in depth on this as you want, and you can try and clean up all these areas, and you can try and get all the spacings right as well. And you can be as detailed as you want on this one. I'm completely happy for you to do that. Just edit them as you go through. There we go. And if we select it, we should be able to move it. Now that is the bonus about changing the actual color of it, is they're not interacting like these ones did, where it kind of chops them all up. Okay, so that's as much as I'm going to do there, and I'm going to let you finish that one, and make sure that you save your work as you go. So the next thing we need to look at then, so let's just do that save now. So just save the work. And for some reason my menu system at the top doesn't work, so I'm using my scroll buttons at the minute. So let's press save. Now with it saved, we need to export. Now if you want to send this lovely picture of a half-made bridge to your family and friends, you do need to export. Okay, remember you cannot send an FLA. So let's go File, and let's scroll down to where it says Export, and then we need to go across to where it says no, not that way. This should be fun. Now we need to go across where it says export image. Now you've got a load of options here. You can export image, which is the one we're going to use. You can do an export image legacy, which I will never ever use. And then when we get onto animation interaction, you have a few other options of doing movies and videos, but we'll get to them then. So for now, we're just going to export an image. So once you've got that export image selected, press enter or click it, and you have to wait just a couple of seconds, and the export dialog will appear. It's a bit slower on this machine, and this is what's going to allow us to have our different images. So we're going to create a PNG. The benefit of a PNG is that it's a transparent background. So this is PNG 24, and it gives us that transparent background. If you did a PNG 8, you wouldn't be able to get as much kind of clarity on it. So we're just going to do PNG 24. The other one you can do, if you're not bothered about a transparent background, is you can do a Jpeg, which is typically used for images. So we can say a high Jpeg, for instance. Let's just do a PNG. I prefer PNGs. It's got all the sizes, and we can uncheck the transparency, or we can keep the transparency selected. Once you've done that, you then just press save. Now it's going to say, where do you want to save it? So if I go back to my assets folder, and it's not showing me my FLA here. My FLA does exist, and I'll show you the actual folder. Here's the actual folder, and you'll notice that it's exactly the same. So it's the animation drawing, and you can see there's the actual FLA file there. Now if I just come back into here, and what you'll notice is you can't see that because at the moment it's only showing me PNG types. So I'm going to have a lesson 1 bridge PNG. So let's just save that, and then I'll show you what I mean. So let's open up that one again, and let's go to my animation. And now what you'll see is I've got my lesson 1 bridge, which is my working file. So if I double click on this, it's going to open up Adobe Animate. And then if I double click on this one, it's going to open up my half completed bridge. Okay, and this is the one that you can then send to your friends and family. So I hope that was useful. I hope you followed along, and make sure that you upload that completed version to the Handin, and I'll see you in the next lesson.